Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
What? It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor. With one taste of our premium blends of all-natural ingredients, herbs, and spices, you'll fall in love with meat all over again. Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce collection is made up of 2 zesty flavors, original and spicy. There's only one way to bring order back to barbecuing. Just add Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce and seasoning, and you be the judge.
Like this. Hi. Listen. I look pale as hell. I didn't put no cream on my face. I went to the gym, ran back from the gym because Thursday gym time. Guys, let me know if you can hear me. Thursday gym, it starts at 7. And it takes me like a good hour to get everything set up. And I just feel, I don't know, naked. I don't feel, hi, audio. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, good. Mika, Barb, amazing. Disgrace. Yes. TJ, thank you guys. Okay, we can, thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, so I just feel all over the place. I'm used to having a part on the left and not the right. I had to throw on something on my lips so I won't look too damn pale, honey. Judge will be up here shortly. But we're gonna have a good show. Now, I'm also nervous because I did a live stream yesterday and I use Restream, and I'm using it again today. So we're gonna see how it goes. One thing I don't like so far is I can't set it up. I can't move around the boxes, like make it bigger or smaller. So that's the only thing I don't like. But anyway, guys, listen, we got to talk about Brown versus Board. It is the 70th anniversary of that decision. Fani the mammy, we got to talk about her. There's a lot of updates with her. We got to talk about Biden issuing an executive privilege. What else on the list here? We got to talk about DEI. We got to talk about what's going on in the court case in New York. Yeah, like Trump gag order. And then I'm gonna throw a little bit of pop culture in there. Cardi B saying she's not gonna vote. Blah 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 blah. But I see the judge. Oh, what is
I'm
this?
on.
Okay. Yes. Hi. What is, we can see all that stuff. What is that stuff there in front of you?
All right.
Oh my God. Really? Come on. You know you're supposed to move that. Come on.
I didn't know it would show. Usually it doesn't.
Because you have the phone situated there. Yes.
Yeah, but the phone, from what I'm looking at, is coming up with a different angle. It's adapted.
So we're using.
It's not on the same. Well, anyway, the camera's adapting. This is a strange app. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me know what you think with this. Because I may go back to StreamYards. Because I'm used to maneuvering stuff around. So this is new. Let's see.
No, all I get is either one big picture of you, which isn't bad, or one with me and you split screen, not the whole thing.
Yeah, because I'm moving it around. You know how I have us positioned down so you can see the eyeballs up top, but I don't know.
You're
it does.
not down. You're right in the middle. It's going right straight through the middle of the screen, long way.
But StreamYards allows me to move the boxes around. This, it seemed like it doesn't. So, you know, this is one of the cons. But anyway.
Well, you know how to operate the StreamYard. I've encountered at least 2 instances, one consistently where they don't. And the one problem is, though they don't get it, they're evoking a security thing. And somebody has to go through all kinds of changes, even if they have a link to get on, which is not cool. So anyhow.
Yeah. Well, how are you? We didn't do a show Monday. You've been very busy this week.
Oh, I've had a lot of work to do this week. Had some old time stuff, helping something out, and I had to draft a response, some pleadings, and draft it up, but because I couldn't access app, I couldn't get in the final form, so I had to send it to the lawyer raw. We worked it out, so it got in.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the show. You got to.
By the way, the earphones work pretty well
on this one. On this one. Yeah.
Don't they?
Well, so far, please don't jinx it.
Well, I'm still getting this thing saying some application or somebody is listening in, which should not be. No, I'm not talking. I'm saying, but it's coming up on my phone. It's saying it. That there may be. Anyway, it's so bad. I told you somebody hacked my phone, so can't use it fully.
Well, guys, please hit the like button, share this video, and listen, if you have a question, send it via super chat. We didn't do a show Monday, so we're going to take our time tonight. I'm not going to hold it to just 2 hours. We may have to go over a little bit 2 hours if we, because I want to make sure we touch everything, and I don't want to be rushing anyone. And we also have a guest that I will be bringing up in about 30 minutes. But I wanted to share this. Let's see. All right, what does that look like? Better.
What are we looking at?
So this is Biden asserts executive privilege over recordings from classified documents probe. The White House has protective assertion of privilege over any remaining materials responsive to the subpoenas that have now already been produced. I was going to play this clip.
I don't think that's going to wash, because what it was is interrogation relative to the commission of a crime. He waived his Fifth Amendment privilege to talk. The investigator, special counsel, did return saying that he was recommending exercise of prosecutorial discretion because, in his opinion, which I don't think is that based on that great an experience level, was that a jury would not likely to convict essentially a senile old man for something that required being willful. But the problem is that the event did not occur when he was willful. It occurred somewhere between, let's see, 16 years ago. So the question is what was his mental capacity at the time? He committed the offense, not what it is at his stand trial. And the stand trial is, are you aware of what's going on, and can you participate meaningfully in your own defense? Not you are reduced capacity now, but not at the time of the commission of the alleged offense. So I think it is just a BS thing. And the other point is, just like we had with Richard Tricky Dick Nixon, this is a Congressional Oversight Committee, and it should have the authority to access those tapes, since they essentially paid, I believe it was, is it her, the special prosecutor? Yeah. Anyway, I think it's crap. And the point of the exercise is it becomes an immediate grounds for dismissal of all of that mess down there in Florida against Trump. It's called disparate treatment. In other words, somebody in the same situation, and in fact, not in the same situation, because Mr. Trump was president of the United States, and under the theory of United States Department of Navy versus Egan, U.S. Supreme Court, 1988, he was entitled to the protections of being commander-in-chief and chief diplomat of the country. That does not extend to the vice president. So Trump has a legitimate claim to have all these charges dropped because your deal is, can you prosecute a president for exercising his pardon or commutation powers? Answer, no. And the other thing is, though there was a specific provision that said he was supposed to turn this stuff over to the archivist, the case for that is not 10 years old, not 50 years old. It is 221 years old. The name of the case is Marbury versus Madison, 1803, United States Supreme Court, which is one of the most profound and important cases in the history of the country. And it says that a president is not bound to follow an unconstitutional act of Congress. And to usurp his constitutional authority is per se unconstitutional. So we'll see where this goes. And that probably had something to do with the judge down there resetting all of this indefinitely. So law lesson ended. Let's go to the next item.
Okay. Let's go to New York real quick, just quickly. Because Trump had a gag order, finally the Republicans, they went up to New York and held a press conference outside of the courtroom, pushing back against the gag order and basically saying this whole case is a sham, right? You had Representative Byron, what's his name? Donald, and Vivek and others, showing Donald Trump support. And
that doesn't have anything to do with what happens in the courtroom, because we don't have trial by mob justice. It's
True.
up to the 12 folk and who will wind up in the jury box. And the other thing, though, is it is a vague threat about we have a lot to do with the laws that are made in this country and a lot to do with the money that's sent out. Watch what you do. The other thing is this judge is an idiot. He shouldn't be on the case. His wife has a vested interest in Trump being convicted, as does his daughter, who is managing millions of dollars in funds to see that he does not win the election, which would be helped if he's convicted. And plus, he held a press conference himself, and he totally misstated the law. And instead of dealing with saying the burden is exclusively on the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the crimes alleged, I don't know what the hell got into his head. It's just completely out of kilter while this case is going on to have a press conference about the case, and the jury is not sequestered. It can go home. So it can potentially hear this or a clip of this or remarks about it, which would taint their situation. And he said it's going to be a swearing match between the defendant Trump and Stormy Daniels, which it is not. I mean, it might work out to that if the defense chose to do it, but that's their option, not the judge's option. That is so way out of line. This guy needs to be snatched off the case right now. Because there is this thing called the appearance of impropriety. And I will be polite about it, but crude about it. It's called the Nookie rule. happy wife, happy life. And when your wife is on or spouse, I suppose nowadays, is on one side of the case, you need to get off of the case yourself, recuse yourself, because that indicates a conflict, because you still want nookie. And if your wife's mad at you for not doing what she wants you to do to further her cause, you might get your nookie ration cut. So, and on top of that, aside from it, you got your daughter and you want to keep the family happy. So your daughter stands to earn her keep if you do something to help her out by making sure the defendant gets a hard time, and you put a gag order on him so she can't be talked about. That's wrong, because everybody else is talking about Trump, from the prosecution brag all the way down, and now we have the judge misstating the law and potentially tainting the jury. And I mean, about time you get the hell on out of there and just say, hey, I'm out. I want to stay on the bench. I don't want to lose my seat because there is this nice paycheck that comes in, and some retirement benefits, and some instant medical insurance benefits. So,
yeah. Well, did you hear that Biden wants to have a debate with Trump?
Yeah, but he specifies he wants the liberal news media to be the only one to cover it. He wants a shut-off switch on Trump's mic, but not his, so Trump can be cut off if he goes overly long or gets too critical. And he wants limitation on the extent of the replies. So I think that's just chicken shit, and it just portrays the fact that this guy doesn't have all of his faculties.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays. Donald Trump.
I'm as smart as this clown. Did better in law school. Hell, finished law school. Got better grades. Same, well, within the age group. And I think Trump kicked his ass in most of those debates. So, interesting bad mouth. That only applies to those who don't remember. Biden got his butt beat. So, yeah, wolf tickets. That's what we used to call them. Dudes selling wolf tickets, man. Like, hey, Mr. Trump ought to buy a whole book of them to a premier performance, man, and get an encore off them.
Well, and they also the Biden camp also requested no audience in both.
Yeah, no audience. Ain't that that's so nobody can cheer. Say, oh man, come on, man, that's wrong, man. Hey.
They're bringing Biden people, you bring in Trump people. But what I also notice is, where are the other candidates? Dr. Cornel West, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I hate to say it, Dr. West is not a viable candidate. That's not real.
But what about
Robert Kennedy Jr.? He's not invited, but he's a spoiler since he has no chance of winning. The only thing he's going to do is detract from one candidate or another, because some people are going to take a cop out.
Every presidential debate, you always had the independent.
And I thought it was ridiculous, because the independents, the last 35 years they've been doing it, it's been a ridiculous waste of time, when all they did was keep somebody from winning with no chance of winning. That would go from, well, anyway, I saw them all. Okay. So in other words, Robert Kennedy looks to me like he's being a loyal Democrat to subtract from Trump's total. He just needs to back out gently right now.
Camp, they feel as though he's pulling votes away from them to Trump.
Oh, that's bull. That's mouth. See, when all's fair in love and war, in politics and war are basically on the same spectrum. General Clausewitz, the Prussian general, in a book called Von Krieg on War, that any self-respecting commander of troops ought to read. Our politician says war is but the ultimate extension of the political process. It's all on the same continuum. So when you got war, anything goes on that goes for down below too, lower levels of politics. And Biden's camp is lying. They're just giving boosted stuff like you see when you read the liberal news media. It goes, Trump, of course, is misleading, or Trump again trying to mislead by accusing falsely with no support for his contentions that the last election was stolen. Totally erroneous. These, like, well, I'm sorry, there are a lot more people than you, fool, who wrote it, who have a different opinion, and you can't totally disrespect that large portion of the American population. Right. So what you should do is, Trump has an alternative, and his side claims that there were discrepancies in the election. You can list them and list the other. You don't say in the report, separate from an editorial, that he gives obviously misleading information or is attempting to spread mistruths or misinformation. And see, that sounds just like Nazi Germany. The Nationalist Socialist Workers' Party, the acronym for which in German is Nazi, Nazi. That's what it sounds like. It's fascist.
So here's the thing. We do have a guest. Should we get into Brown versus Board or go to the guests?
Let's touch Brown v. Board first, 70th anniversary. The NAACP, which was funded by the Jewish community, had a theory back in the early part of the 20th century, which spoke to their condition, which was badly discriminated against, though of course not as badly as ours. And they funded a lot of things going on in what's called civil rights. Thurgood Marshall became chief counsel, and his theory was we have to find a way to advance legally the interest of black folk, and there are not any laws on the books other than those attended upon 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. And the 15th Amendment had been co-opted for benefit of corporate entities, which were a new thing in the 1870s. They were so-called fictitious persons created by state legislative action. Now, he came up with a theory, or at least this is what he said at a lecture I attended long ago. We decided to rely on the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals statutes. In other words, if you couldn't do it to a dog, you couldn't do it to a Negro. And the financiers, the Jewish community, said, well, if you can't do it to a dog, you can't do it to a Negro, you can't do it to a Negro, you can't do it to a Jew. So he laid out a long planned strategy that wound up with several plaintiffs in this action that is styled Brown v. Board of Education. He was not the only attorney, but he became the lead counsel for the consolidated actions, which the U.S. Supreme Court put all together. And they heard the arguments, and they ruled that segregation was inherently unconstitutional. They put one bad thing in there. It was wasn't even a paragraph. It was a sentence. It says integration is to proceed at all deliberate speed. And that deliberate speed was poisonous language because a lot of people drug their feet. Now, I know we have so-called woke Negroes now who think that integration was horrible for black folk. That wasn't the issue. What it really was, and what that case was about, was desegregation. It didn't mean you had to join in, but it meant you couldn't be kept out, and they have no clue what the circumstances are where they were. Boy, what you looking at? Don't you look at that water fountain, boy. Nigger put his mouth anywhere near that water fountain. Something bad gonna happen to him, boy. Now you get on over there with a colored drink, over there where the dogs are. You can water your dog over there too if you want. See, that's like you go to a park and you see these no dogs, off leash. Dogs must be leashed or no dogs allowed. That's the way it was when it came to black folks. It's kind of like black people were like African apes. You know, when we talk about African apes, we think of what? Chimpanzees. You might throw bonobos in there, which are a form of chimpanzee, and you think of gorillas. Well, these people at that time thought of it the three African apes: chimpanzees, gorillas, and Negroes. So there were chimp apes and gorilla apes and Negro apes, and they kind of lumped black folk in this category of being African apes that got imported, but they could do a lot of tricks, you know. You saw the chimpanzees were loved, and Walt Disney had them, and Clint Eastwood did a movie with one, and all of this other kind of stuff. Ronald Reagan too. So everybody had their Negro apes. And if you were an animal lover, you know, you did it. They had societies back then that were the equivalent of $19 a month now to save a Negro fund. So was what it was.
Okay, so let's first take it bit by bit, right? Supreme Court, the decision, right?
I just gave it to you.
Right.
Said it's inherently unequal. If previously under Plessy v. Ferguson, you had constitutional mandates would be kept even if you separated the Negro from general society, as long as it was kept equal. Now, it had benefits. A lot of black folk wound up going to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, who were in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and North Carolina, because they wouldn't let the colored go to the major state universities. So to make it equal, they would ante up the money and send them to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of black folk got a pretty decent education, better than the white people did in the towns. Now, that being said, the issue that Thurgood Marshall was raising was that segregation was inherently unequal. And that's what the Supreme Court bought into. They just unfortunately put that language. Now, I'm going to go to something that goes to what we just got through hearing and deals with this. Wound up in the mid-50s after this that it was decided that the Little Rock High School would be integrated. Well, Arkansas Governor Faubus stood in the doorway of Little Rock High School and he said, as long as I'm governor of the state of Arkansas, there's not going to be a Negro who goes to a high school like this. I will stand in the way. Now, President Ike Eisenhower had to send the 101st Airborne down there to clear that up. But let's fast forward to why is it topical today. 1972, I attended a rally inadvertently. It was just happening outside the building I was in. And this same governor that was going, there will not be a Negro going to Little Rock High School as long as I'm governor. He was introducing, this is one of the upstanding young men in America. He's going to be our hope. He will do what is needed to restore sense to this situation with the Negro. And he was introducing Joe Biden.
Interesting.
I was there. I eyeballed him. I heard it. So,
well, I wanna add in this story, right? And I mentioned this before, but I wanted to shed some more light on it. So in 1938, Lloyd Gaines filed a lawsuit after being denied admission to the University of Missouri Law School in 1935 because he was black. The court ruled in his favor and required Missouri to admit him or set up a black law school. After that, he disappeared for 3 months. Wait. Let me pull this. I don't want to have all this other stuff here. I'm sorry. He disappeared 3 months later, never to be found. Lloyd Lionel Gaines was born to the Gaines family in northern Mississippi in 1911, one of 11 children, 7 of whom survived illness and accident. He moved with his widowed mother and siblings to St. Louis after a premature death of their father. They found a better, although not easy, life for themselves in Missouri. Gaines excelled in his studies. He was valedictorian of his high school, Vashon High School, at Lincoln University in Jefferson City. He graduated with honors and was president of the senior class while practicing many extracurricular activities. Despite his outstanding scholastic record, the University of Missouri School of Law denied Gaines admittance in 1936 solely on the grounds that Missouri's constitution called for separate education of the races. By state law, Missouri would have been required to pay for Gaines to attend the University of Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska, but Gaines was determined to fight for the right to attend law school in his own state university. So he sought legal assistance from the NAACP, which had been working systemically to overturn the ignominious president of precedent of separate but equal, established in Plessy versus
Plessy.
Plessy. I always say Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. So, although they challenged the University of Missouri admission policies, in 1938, Gaines won his case before United States Supreme Court in the state of Missouri. It would be Gaines versus Canada, paving the way for the series of cases that will lead to Brown versus Board of Education, outlawing segregation in public education.
That's one way of looking at it. Part of the decision was based on the fact that he wanted to study the law of the state he intended to practice in. And if he had to go out of state, he would lose the advantage of studying in-state law. Plus, I think at the time, if you graduated from an in-state law school, you were waived into the bar without having to take it. But that was a step. Also, Thurgood Marshall was involved in that. He was born a year after my father was. My old man wound up going to Howard Law School after he got out of World War II. But anyway, it's interesting that he got into this. My old man never practiced law. Interesting, too, he went to Lincoln University. At the time he was at Lincoln University, my mother was teaching library science there. So,
wow. Well, in March of 1939, only 3 months after his Supreme Court victory, Lloyd Gaines was last seen in Chicago. He disappeared at age 28 with his promise of attending law school in Missouri. Lloyd Gaines was never to be seen or heard from again. So
that's where my old man was from, Missouri.
Why I'm bringing this up is because I don't think I like this angle.
It looks all right.
The question I want to ask you now, separate but equal in 2024. When we look at the education system today, right? Here you have this Black man, he knew it. And I'm pretty sure during that time, Black men knew the consequences of trying to fight for equality, which is death, which is one of the main consequences. But they did it anyway. Yeah, but they did it anyway. One of many consequences. Today, you don't see that so much.
You don't see it at all.
So why are schools so segregated today in 2024?
Because they found out a nice little thing. Once they got the first hint of breaking down the segregation, they got a dynamic group of Black students, male and female, who went through colleges and universities. they implemented affirmative action, and the affirmative action was effective. In fact, it read pretty much like Roberts' majority opinion in the current Supreme Court action on affirmative action, which said you have to use standards that are not race-based, even if they actually had a de facto race-based because of the disparate application of the standards when it came to black folk. You got some heavyweight blacks that got through. Then you got the folk that weren't so heavyweight that got in, and they kind of were punky, and they didn't give a damn about anybody. They weren't going to jail because they were scared. They weren't going to take a stand. They weren't going to bust anything up. They weren't going to do what was necessary during the militant 60s. And they got through in the early 70s, and instead of, brother, let's move. We need some more work down here in the econ department. They need to get some black folk in here so we can understand the economy. Well, brother, it's not that I don't appreciate all of the things that all of you have done for me. I really do. But I can't afford to jeopardize my career. So you'll have to go on without me. But I'll be there with you in spirit. Oh, hell. See, we had too many of those, and they are the prototypes for the Atlanta housewife bunch. You also see that with what we're dealing with down in Fulton County with the people, ordinary people who are courageous, we have been dealing with, and how the Negroes who are the children and grandchildren of the civil rights icons that have no balls, no guts, no principle, no character, they just feel entitled to get in there and exploit. And that's what you've got too much of, and it went downhill. Last few times I've been to historical HBCUs, I've been very disappointed because to me, and I used to teach as a substitute, junior high and high school, it looks to me very much like a cross between junior high and high school and these so-called colleges and universities, with the atmosphere relative to how they treat the students, their responsibilities, their accountabilities, and they're treated like kids. When I went to school at UCLA and the major universities, and when this guy was trying to get in, hey, you're the one paying the money. You're the one that's there trying to get yourself together, do what you need to do. But nowadays it's treated kind of like it's high school, like you get detention because you missed a class. Like, the hell, he's paying for it.
It's not they're treating you like a kid when you're supposed to be independent. You're supposed to be a young adult, an independent thinker, self-sufficient, and they're still treating you like high school. They call HBCUs, what certain people call them, the 13th grade, right?
Yeah, well, let me give you an example. Clark, same campus as Spelman and Morehouse down in Atlanta. I was there with a certain lady judge. We were taking her daughter down there to enroll. She had graduated from Clark, and we had a meeting with, I believe it was the dean of students or some other dean down there. And when we got there, there were two girls, 23 years old apiece, who were seniors, in a fist fight right outside the student union, broad daylight. Like, really? And that got broken up, and then their mothers got in a fist fight, and it was apparently because somebody had said something one took as negative on Facebook. So when we talked to the dean was expressing her exasperation with the immature conduct of the students, and that just matched up with what you were saying. This is grade 13. Grown folk don't act like that.
I wanted to share this video.
No, that's not going to be bad mouthing everybody.
No.
Just that there is an obligation to get your stuff together so you can do what you need to do to become part of W.E.B. Du Bois' talented 10th. In other words, he said the colored people will be able to improve when they bootstrap themselves up, when they're talented 10th, the 10th percentile at the top, uses their intelligence, their drive, their initiative, and their enterprise to get their people together. Now, Du Bois is on the out, and we look at this handkerchief head boy, Booker T. Washington, as a hero now. And frankly, I think of Booker T. Washington, from what I heard from my parents and grandparents and everybody around and about way back when, he was kind of like Al Sharpton back then, like Al is today.
There are black people who would disagree with you with
Well,
that.
I don't give a goddamn, because all you have to do is think about, why does every municipality in the South have a Booker T. Washington school? And why would these racist white folk pushing Jim Crow decide to name schools after a Booker T. Washington? And why did he go to every one of the gubernatorial mansions at least twice in the old Confederacy, the 11 Confederate states? Why did racist from Virginia Democrat President Woodrow Wilson love him? Why did racist running dog Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, love him? Because he was a good Negro. He said, pick up the mop, pick up the pail, because that'll make you useful, and in 2 generations they might let your grandchildren elevate themselves out of gratitude or appreciation. W.E.B. Du Bois said, hell no, you want it now, take it now. And that went along with Marcus Garvey and a few other people. So it is what it is. But, you know, times change, and the perspective people have is bad. But I can't stand Booker T. Washington, because we studied him. He was looked at as a race traitor and an accommodationist. And that's just like I look at Al Sharpton right now. So if you want to see Booker T, your modern counterpart is Al Sharpton. If you like Al, I can understand how you like Booker.
Where is there any place you could get the hands on the Atlanta Compromise, that famous Booker T. Washington speech? They're calling it the Atlanta Compromise, where he was basically telling black people to pick up.
He always said that, pick up the pail, pick up the mop. My grandfather knew him, couldn't stand him. My grandfather was a doctor, became a doctor back in the late 19th century. So Alex Haley's grandfather was a doctor back then. He knew him too. None of them could stand his ass. So bottom line is he was looked at as one of those house Negroes who was currying favor by keeping down the black folk on out in the fields and in the trades and everywhere else. So we didn't exactly get into anything that Booker T did. It was like, where they come from? Oh, hell no, get that shit away from me.
Right. I want to play this clip. This is a
Now, I hope I offend somebody, and if I do, then go look up why you think you like him. And when you do that, you start thinking about some of the woke folk. We need to get us some land where we can grow some fruits and vegetables, and we don't have to deal with white folk. Yeah, okay. Pipe dream for humanity. For the last 25, 30, 50,000 years, they've been promoting interaction amongst each other, trade, enterprise, and discourse and contact. And you want to go back and be a Neolithic old New Stone Age farmer. Yeah, great. Now, get your head together, learn what it takes to get into the 21st century, get into STEM, get into the technology, the engineering, the math, the science, the things you need to produce microchips and stuff like that. You know, there's a chance. Get in on a brand new industry where it isn't filled up with a lot of structured layers that you're going to be on the bottom of, particularly since you don't have the big financing that the big pockets have. So do something new. Start a new .com revolution or something.
Charles CDT, you have to email me that. I can't click that link. I want to go to this clip here. This is a teacher today. She teaches 3rd and 4th graders, and it's very concerning with her message that she has for the parents and, us in society. So let me play it.
It's no secret that cities and states use 3rd and 4th grade math and reading scores to determine just how many jails and prisons that they will need in a certain area. But have you ever asked yourself just how they are able to determine and predict future incarcerations just from some test scores? Hold on, I'm finna tell you. They are using something that is known as the Matthew effect. What is the Matthew effect? The Matthew effect states that if your child does not learn certain key fundamental skills by the 3rd grade, then chances are they will never learn them, and the gaps that they have will continue to grow. According to statistics, illiteracy leads to higher crime rates, and higher crime rates leads to higher incarceration. So if they take those test scores within the area of the 3rd and 4th grade and they see that they are low in reading and low in math, well, then that tells the state, that tells the city that more prisons and more jails need to go up because these 3rd and 4th graders, statistically, will be illiterate, which means higher crime, which means higher incarceration.
Is it true?
Yeah.
She's correct.
The other thing, too, there's another thing, visual acuity. We found that 78 to 83% of the people in penitentiaries had recognizable visual acuity problems. In other words, nobody took them to an optometrist or ophthalmologist to get their eyes checked out, and they couldn't see the blackboard, they couldn't read the book. They had to work extra hard. So that high percentage, let's average it out, about 80% of the people in the penitentiaries have visual acuity problems. So it's not surprising. The other thing is on my theory, the penitentiaries in the first place are warehouses to deal with storing surplus labor. In other words, labor units surplus to the labor requirements. A labor unit is a human. So when you can't contribute to the labor needs of your area, then you become surplus and you're likely to clown and carry on. I dealt with this at great length. And when I was on the bench, one of the things I did was I coerced people into learning. It's like I got you by the gonads and I will clamp down on them and squeeze the hell out of them if you don't do what I want you to do. And that means you're going to make up for what you lack because your mammy didn't tell you to sit down on the other side of the kitchen table from her and do your homework because she was busy slutting around and doing whatever in the hell she did. So you will learn, or I will see to it that you do damn near day to day for this time that you copped out to, that I gave you an opportunity to escape if you do what I'm telling you to do, which is what you need to do. People walk up to me now 30 some years later, 28 years later, 25 years later, want to shake my hand. And yeah, okay, thank you for doing what you did for me because I needed that. And there was another way. When I understood what was going on around me and I learned how to manipulate it by educating myself or absorbing offers to educate myself, then I was no longer helpless and I did not feel like I had to turn to criminal sociopathic behavior. As a consequence, I had a stake in it because it's like being a frontiersman. If you learn how to track game, read sign, whatever, you're looking at all of the venison out there to eat and all the other stuff to eat. This is good. If you don't know those things, then you're stuck in the middle of a wilderness and you're scared as hell because you don't know how to operate. And that's what you have down in the hood.
Real quick, I wanted to touch on this real quick before I bring the guests up. Did you see the video of the black teacher who was getting his hair unbraided by the students and he got fired?
No, I didn't see it.
All right, let me pull this up real quick and just, quickly commentary on it. All right, let me play this.
Let's go ahead and stir the pot a little, shall we? Last Friday, 10 minutes before dismissal time, I was sitting in to take my hair out. There was quite the discourse in the chat, which had people saying this was inappropriate, and other people saying this was completely fine. There was nothing wrong with what I was doing, and people were just making it weird. So of course I had to bring this issue to the big stage. I would like to represent myself in this case, Your Honor, if I may. Number one, for a little context, I had a hair appointment immediately after school, and I needed my hair taken out beforehand. I would have taken it out the night before, but that Friday we had a camera crew coming in to shoot a promotional video, and I was one of the ones being interviewed. So I had to look presentable, so I didn't take my hair out. I didn't have the time to do it all myself, because it would have taken me forever. So naturally I asked about 4 or 5 of my over 100 best friends to assist me in taking my hair out, and they all agreed. Number two, this was at the end of class. This week we were doing STEM fair presentations. Since it was Friday and all of my students did an excellent job on their STEM fair projects and presentations, I told them if we get one solid presentation in this class, I'll end class a little early and they can have fun and play basketball, darts, or be on their phones or whatever. And during that time, my team would help me take my hair out. A couple of these were students from my class, but others were students from other classes. I would offer them a pass at the beginning of the class period, requesting their assistance 10 minutes before dismissal. I told the teachers only send them if all of their work was completed and they had good behavior. To have good behavior, complete all their assignments.
All right. You get the point. He got fired.
It's ridiculous, and he should have been fired. First off, the students aren't his friends. It's his job to train them. After they get out of his school, they might become friends later in life. Next thing, if he thought it wasn't presentable for the video, why in the hell is he being unpresentable to his students? You ought to be setting an image for them, being a role model. And then you sit there and you give the students the opportunity to do nothing when they're in an educational environment. And that's not the point. They're already doing nothing as it is. You give them something to do. You reward the student by giving them the opportunity to enrich themselves, not languish and go la-di-da, I have time to waste on your phones, playing your video games. Did you hear what he said? And then the bottom line is they're all female. You don't get a bunch of young little nubile girls fondling all over your head, and you're supposed to be a grown man. That's just totally unseeming. I could go on at length, but yeah. And the other thing is too, I had 4 African roommates when I was at UCLA, and they saw this where some of the young black females were braiding their sons' hair, and it's Joseph, I don't understand. Why they put the braids in these girls' hair? These boys, well, I mean, they boys are they girls? Boys don't wear braids. They can wear dreads, but not braids. That is for girls. I said, all right, tell them, you see. But see, this is the kind of attitude that we have, and this is just totally inappropriate. If you're going to teach, you have to do what you do anytime you teach, which is you hold yourself out. You are above the fray. You are the master. Like even bad Darth Vader says, my master teaches me so-and-so. You get on and you bow to your instructor, and you have to maintain that. You do not act as the student's friend. Right. You are there to train the student. They're not grown. They're not your peer group. You are not to treat them like that. They have to earn that privilege.
Right. And there were, of course, women defending him. He did a podcast crying, saying that, he felt like he did nothing wrong. And, he want to thank all of his students for sending him prayer cards and supportive cards and all this other stuff. And, listen, it was unprofessional. And you having your students touch you, whether it's taking braids out, it was unprofessional and it was inappropriate. I don't know what the policies or the rules are for that particular school. However, everyone has rules and policies, and he crossed the line. Now,
He certainly did.
Yeah, should he have been completely fired? Maybe suspended?
Yes. No,
Okay.
fired.
Okay.
And his conduct since then exemplifies why he should have been fired. Sitting there crying and carrying on. See, he had a totally different attitude toward his job than what was appropriate for that job.
Right. One last clip here on education, and then I'm gonna bring the guest up. Former teacher and assistant principal says America is in a literacy crisis as she begs parents to take away kids' cell phones and tablets.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, I am not trying to fearmonger you, but I was an assistant principal, I was a middle school teacher, and I was a high school teacher. And I need you to know America is in a literacy crisis, and they're not making a big enough deal about it. Our children cannot read. Our children cannot read, let alone writing a paragraph, let alone comprehension. They cannot read. They do not know how to sound words out. They were not taught that. And if you're wondering, well, then why does my kid just keep getting passed on to the next grade? Because that's what they're doing now. They're not holding the children back. They're moving them on. They're graduating them, knowing that your child is illiterate. Our next change makers, our next lawmakers, our next voters cannot read. I beg of you, take the tablets and the cell phones away. Practice letter recognition and sounds and reading with your child, please. And I'm going to keep it a stack with you. They been knew. They been knew the babies couldn't read and didn't care. You know when they started caring? After the pandemic.
So
okay, I agree. I've been a school teacher, scout master, Cub Scout master, or playground director. That's what they can't. Right now, I try to give kids a break. They can't read. That's why we're stuck on stupid. Why some of the stupid laws come up. You've got people who are running committees in Congress, in state legislative bodies, and they don't know how to read. It's like they look at this stuff that they're getting somebody else to draft up for them, and they put it in print, and it's in the law books, and the codes apply to everyday people, and they can't. The people that are supposed to be passing the laws can't even read it.
Right.
And that extends to why some of this stuff you see going on relative to Donald Trump looks so stupid, is because, quite frankly, some of the people that are sitting on these benches don't read too well either. They don't write too well. And I know for the 30 years I went to judicial conferences, we used to have these writing sessions because judges are expected to write draft orders and whatever, and they couldn't write. They didn't have the English down. And that's not just black folk, that's everybody. But see, it ain't white supremacy because there's no white man sitting on the other side of the kitchen table. That's parents, you do it. If you don't get it, jump in. Maybe you'll learn something trying to teach your kid.
Exactly. All right. So I want to bring the guests up, and then we're going to get into the Fani updates. El Amir, are you there? He's been waiting patiently.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
All right.
All right. So over 2 weeks ago, just about 2 weeks ago, you sent me an email a little over 2 weeks ago. You wanted to come on to talk about your situation in the state of New Jersey. We've had other people come on the show so that they can have a platform to, just bring some attention to their legal situation, or it doesn't necessarily have to be legal, but some type of injustice, right? Judge Joe Brown do not give legal advice. However, what do? You could analyze, or What's a proper
I
way?
spread legal education, but I don't give advice. It's up to you.
Yes.
But
So, mhm.
what is your problem?
Well, I'm dealing with a civil
Oh,
rights
I'm sorry.
lawsuit.
Just quickly introduce yourself and then get into your problem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How you doing? I'm Elamir. I have a civil action in state level New Jersey that's based on forged arrest warrant applications, false arrests, and my civil action was dismissed because the attorney alleged that the officer had nothing to do with my case. Couple years
He was just
after.
carrying out the warrant. Is that right?
No. What happened is the officer
Well, start from
appeared.
the beginning, the incident that took place, how it all started. You was at your
That
friend
might
house.
help.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was at my friend's house, and there was a search warrant executed for him, and I was there as well. So I got arrested too. That's how it started. So when the matter actually started being adjudicated, I found out that the arrest warrant applications was never issued by the court. I motioned to dismiss. The dismissal was granted, but it took 3 years. So then I filed a civil rights action based on the forged arrest warrant applications. The officer's counsel argued that the officer had nothing to do with my case since the date of arrest, when the officer actually was appearing as a witness during the litigation.
What
So now
litigation? The criminal litigation or the civil litigation?
the criminal litigation.
All right, that's prosecution. All right. So he was a witness for the state.
It's a woman, yes.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so during the civil litigation, after the dismissal in my favor, the state civil court
You mean after
agreed.
the dismissal of the criminal charges against you? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
All
after the
right.
dismissal of the criminal charges, I filed a lawsuit, civil rights action. That was dismissed because the officer's attorney, argued that they had nothing to do with my case since the date of arrest.
So his position probably would have been he was just executing the warrant that he had, search warrant.
In part, yes.
Okay. Well, how does he become liable for relying upon what on its face may or may not have looked like a valid search warrant?
Well, the search warrant was for a different individual, wasn't for me.
Well, you were on the premises.
Right.
All right. Now, what sort of contraband, if any, was found on the premises?
Allegedly marijuana, a stun gun, and some other items.
So you were present on the premises when a quantity of marijuana was discovered and a stun gun, right?
Yes.
Okay. Charges got dismissed because apparently the instruments, the warrants were, well, the warrant was defective. All right. That what happened?
There was an arrest warrant for my friend, and then there were arrest warrants that were prepared. The arrest warrants that were prepared, I found out to had not been issued by the court, but that was a couple years later.
Well, or nominally, what you'd be talking about is officers would be making a physical arrest because you were found to be in what would be constructive possession of the marijuana in their estimation. So they they arrest you, and they probably filed an affidavit, a complaint later on, but the initial charging instruments would have been reflected in probably what they call various places an arrest ticket or something like that. So they made a physical arrest.
Yeah, they made a physical arrest and they prepared arrest warrant applications. That
Okay.
they stipulated that those applications were issued telephonically, but I found that they were not.
Okay. What happened? They weren't?
They weren't. They weren't issued by the court. No judge ever issued the documents.
To make a physical arrest, you don't have to have a judge back that up. That's just, you have to get arraigned first, and then the judge might make some kind of ruling on what's happening. It depends on the state. So I couldn't speak to that. But anyway, so let's get to the media case. Where do you go there?
So I sued for various theories of liability, but malicious prosecution was the main one. The civil state court found that I met all the prongs. They found that I established a lack of probable cause, established that there was malice, etc., but then turned around and dismissed against the officer based on statute of limitations because the officer argued, or excuse me, the attorney argued
Well,
that
it's
the
him. He's
officer,
arguing through his attorney. That's the
right,
same thing.
the opposition argued that they,
Oh, your mic is muted. Go ahead.
the opposition argued that they had nothing to do with the prosecution since the year of the arrest.
Well, wouldn't your action be against the police department rather than this individual officer?
Well, I sued the city as well. I also sued the county, but the charging officer was a county detective.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. So where are you right now?
So now I'm on appeal, state level, appellate division. I have oral argument on the 22nd.
22nd.
You got it.
The 22nd of May?
Yeah, next week.
Okay.
Do you have an attorney?
No.
Why not? Do you think you don't need one, or
I haven't been able to get one. I've been trying to get an attorney. This matter goes back to 2013.
so you've been to attorneys and they turned you down?
Yeah, most attorneys that say that they deal with civil rights, they tell me that they only deal with civil rights employment cases.
In the state of New Jersey.
Yes, in New Jersey. And that's even where I found that they've represented other people on cases like malicious prosecution, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare these days that you find to go get them lawyer. One that's actually got trial experience or has actually gotten involved in that. I can see your problem. That's getting rather endemic right now. Sorry that you run into that. So you're going to deal with oral argument on this motion to dismiss, or is this the appeal to your appellate court?
Yeah, this is an appeal. So in 2017, New Jersey implemented an electronic arrest warrant software. They're called e-warrants now, or ECDRs. I had did a records request last year for some records related to the case. And in response to that, I received copies of these electronic documents that are imitations of the original manual arrest warrant applications. So I filed a motion to reopen the case, and I submitted these electronic documents and some other items as new evidence to reopen.
So my question, why is it so hard for you to find a civil rights attorney in the state of New Jersey? Is it because they don't want to deal with suing, whether it's the city, county, or the state of New Jersey itself? Did they give a reason why? So every attorney you saw said, we don't handle civil rights unless it has to do with employment.
Yes.
So they didn't go any further details as to another reason why. So sometimes they just don't want the headache of dealing with suing the state. Judge, do you find that a lot of attorneys don't want to have to fight the state or a city or a county?
They don't know how.
Okay.
You have some that are nationally prominent. They don't know how either.
Like Ben Crump.
I'm not mentioning any names. Some people settle a lot, but some folk,
They don't know how to win. They don't know how to,
they haven't had to. See, it's kind of like this. There are too many lawyers, and the lawyers that you have are essentially underemployed. So they charge great fees for little service to keep the doors open. And they are in the profession as a business rather than as a profession. It's kind of like if you walk down the hallway to go to a medical doctor you've been referred to by your primary physician, and you get in there, you see all of the degrees on the wall, but then you discover he's never done an internship or a residency, and basically he's a rookie. He just has book training, but no hands on. That matches the situation with a lot of lawyers today. They've got the degrees, they've had the law offices open, somebody financed them, they do a lot of advertisement, and they really don't know the trade because they haven't had the hands-on experience. And about the only way you can get that now is to either be with an agency, which is not likely to result in a lot of trial experience, or you're with either the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office. And you can't stay with either too long. You just have to learn your trade and then move on out into the real world. But some stay there forever. Now, that said, a lot of people are scared because it's very daunting. And as we talked about earlier, too many legislators don't know how to read and write, and they don't know what's being passed because they don't read it. So the laws are getting ever more complex, ever more full of red tape, and it's a bad scene.
Now, do you find that in the state of New Jersey, that is also a lot of corruption?
Yes. Yes.
I would concur. I believe it. So if you have a state that is known for its corruption, by the way, it is a blue state, but they're known for their corruption. And then you have lawyers. See, lawyers always communicate with each other to a certain degree. So you have lawyers, no, we only want to deal civil rights cases when it comes to employment. Definitely don't want to touch the state. Like the judge said, they don't have the experience. They don't know how to win. But on top of that, I'm pretty sure in the lawyers in New Jersey, and I definitely don't want to go up against the state of New Jersey because a lot of things are already rigged. A lot of people have multiple positions, and they have power, whether it's over a judge, because judges in New Jersey are appointed, they are not voted in. So it's like a chain effect, a domino effect. Of I appoint you because you're going to do me favors if I put you in this position. That is a thing in the state of New Jersey. Real quick, Judge, do you think it's a difference? Do you think that sometimes if judges are appointed rather than voted in, you may have more corruption?
You tend to get softer judges who are appointed. They're safe to the person that appoints them, because if you appoint somebody, your appointments reflect on you. So it's better to get a safe judge who doesn't rock the boat. Person who's elected is more likely to rock the boat. But then again, we had a judge who was elected quite a few times as a criminal court judge in a predominantly black area, and he had formerly been Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan and chairman of the White Citizens Council, but he paid some of the black elected officials to put him on their sample ballots that they passed out on election day, and he kept getting black bloc votes, so he was an idiot. I used to cuss him out regularly doing judicial meetings for the judges for criminal court here in Memphis, Shelby County, as did some of the rest of the judges too. He had deficiencies as a human being, but that kind of person you don't want. But then again, sometimes you run into somebody that's okay. Sometimes you might get an accident in the appointment, one way or the other. But it's basically up to the lawyers, and I don't even know if they're scared of the state. They're scared to display the fact that their knowledge is not what it ought to be. See, we have too much of this where, as the lady talked about, working from the bottom up, as you go through the academic structure, you're supposed to be increasingly challenged. And like you said, HBCUs too often, it's like 13th grade rather than college or university. So it is what it is. I'm sorry you're going through this kind of mess. Good luck.
So,
Thank you.
So go ahead.
So as to corruption, there's a whole lot of articles on that county, the violent corruption cases or Cumberland County corruption cases. There's a black female prosecutor that runs that county. She's been in quite a few whistleblower actions where they settled in those different whistleblower actions. Interestingly,
are you looking to settle, or are you looking to possibly change something? You see what I'm saying? Are you looking for a settlement?
I'm not sure. I'm looking for justice, really. Okay. That's really what I'm looking for, because I have the transcripts from the criminal matter where the court agreed that
you muted yourself again.
The court agreed that the documents, the arrest warrant applications, had not been issued in accordance with the rule, which was
you're looking for your record to be, I guess, expunged.
I filed for that as well, but that's separate from, the civil relief I'm seeking under the Civil Rights Act. So aside to that, I filed criminal complaints as well, and probable cause was found against this same officer, county detective.
Right.
Okay, so in that part of the case, the county prosecutor sneakily drafted an order to transfer the criminal case against her employee to her neighboring county, which violated my crime victim rights, because I was supposed to be given notice and the venue was supposed to be placed near the victim. What they did was transferred it 100 miles from my residence to Cape May County. Okay. Cape May County was also investigating a complaint by the same detective of sexual harassment against one of her colleagues, who was also involved with my arrest. That was also transferred to Cape May. In that part of the case, or that case rather, it was exposed that the entire task force, which were non-black, mostly white males, were using the N-word. And that came up in the investigation on that matter. And the county council of Cape May approved the use of the term.
Well, that is...
Well, if they're undercover, they have to maintain their semblance of reality. I can see that one. It's been long ruled upon that the police, when they're doing stuff like that, can engage in subterfuge or such things as become necessary to maintain an aspect of realism in the role that they're playing. But now,
this was a good question here. The NAACP, do they have a lawyer? Have you reached out to the NAACP in New Jersey?
I'm a member.
So have you spoken to them about your situation?
Yes, and I haven't gotten any real assistance from them. I noticed the show was talking about Brown versus Boards. I had posted in the chat. My great grandmother was Gladys Hesper's. Her case was used in the Brown versus board case. She was an NAACP member as well.
Oh wow. Yeah. And what state was this? Her case was.
New Jersey.
Oh, in New
Supreme
Jersey.
Court of New Jersey case.
And did she win? And was it in her favor or?
Yeah, the case won. It was won. I forget the first name, but her attorney last name was Queen.
Mhm.
And Thurgood Marshall had reached out to him and cited Hedgepeth Williams versus City of Trenton.
Right. So let's just tie this all up, and I appreciate you coming on. What is it that you want to see happen, and tell us what it, because what is the reason you wanted to come on the show and talk about your situation, your case? You have a court date next week on the 22nd. So what is it that you want to see happen out of all this?
In my case, I want the defendants held liable
Mm-hmm. And
for violating my civil rights.
And held liable how? Like suspended? Do you want settlements? Do you want them to be fired? Or do you want to change in policies on how they, conduct situations?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. I want it all.
And that's all in your lawsuit?
Yes.
So you're challenging the dismissal based on the statute of limitations, I take it, right?
Yes.
And you're also challenging the earlier ruling that the officer is exempt because he was essentially following orders or acting in supposed good faith that the process he was advised of would in fact be valid. That's what he's saying, right?
Well, that wasn't part of the ruling in the civil matter or the criminal matter.
Well, it wouldn't be in the criminal matter. That would just be for the civil.
The civil defense that the officer put up was that she had nothing to do with my case since the year of the arrest. That was 2010.
That was the statute of limitations thing.
Yes. So she argued that she had nothing to do with the case since 2010 when she was appearing at hearings in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your statute of limitations?
The statute of limitations in New Jersey for disorderly persons offenses is 1 year.
No, I'm not talking about that. That's totally separate and apart. We're talking about here for your civil case.
Okay. The matter was dismissed June 20th, 2013. My civil action was filed June 18th, 2013. 2 days before the dismissal, I filed my lawsuit. I amended my complaint later and added malicious prosecution.
He does not.
And I met all of the grounds.
Have you reached out to Ben Crump?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Have you reached out to Ben Crump?
Why would you reach out to Ben Crump?
Well, he's always doing civil suits for settlement.
He's not doing civil suits. He's settling stuff where there's some physical injury to somebody. This is something else. I don't know. Maybe he handles that stuff. But anyway, let me ask you a question. When did you file the criminal charges against this woman?
May 2013, a month before the dismissal.
So there are pending criminal charges against this woman. The defendant responded individually, and there are also civil charges that are pending. Is that right?
At that time, yes. The criminal charges were transferred to the neighboring county.
Well, that doesn't mean that they went away. What happens? That's just change of venue.
So when it got there, okay, I filed complaints under New Jersey Criminal Code, and I also filed complaints under federal 18 USC.
Well, that's totally separate and apart. That's a federal charge, not a state charge. So you have cases pending against her criminally in federal court and in, what are the balloons doing going on?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
The hell is that?
So, so what happened was, instead of the federal probable cause findings that the judge made being sent to the federal government, they were sent to Cape May County with the state criminal charges. So the federal charges that the judge found probable cause on, they never made it to the District Court of New Jersey. They never
Well, in
made it
other
to
words,
the federal government.
what's supposed to happen is so has any grand jury been involved in this?
No, because Cape May County got the case and dismissed the charges against the officer based on insufficient evidence.
All right, so that's on appeal.
No, that was the criminal matter against the detective. The civil matter I have is on appeal.
All right, so the prosecutorial discretion was exercised in favor of the officer as disposed of the circumstances of any criminal proceedings against her. So now you're dealing with the civil dismissal. Did you have a lawyer at any one time on this?
No. Couldn't get one. Motion for counsel as well. Those motions were denied.
That's for appointed counsel.
Yeah.
In the civil matter. All right.
Well, listen, it sounds like you know your case inside and out. It sounds like you also know about the laws and the code. So I really do hope it works out in your favor. And you're doing this alone, with no type of legal representation. A lot of times people can't afford it, but in your situation, it's hard to find a good attorney to represent you. And yes, the state of New Jersey is very racist. And not just that, it's very corrupt. I'll say definitely is very, very, very corrupt. One more thing quickly, because you mentioned something about Jay-Z.
Okay, the trial court civil judge that I recently dealt with, whose order I'm appealing now, is the same judge that dealt with the Jay-Z paternity case, wherein which the attorney for Jay-Z misrepresented to the court that Jay-Z had no real estate in New Jersey in context of the court's jurisdiction, which was false. He does have properties and
how do you know
businesses and things. It's addressed in the article.
Okay.
Also, once the attorney got exposed, she apologized to the court, but there was no real disciplinary action taken based on her misrepresentation, which got the matter dismissed.
And how is that connected to your case?
I have the same judge, and he did the same thing in my situation where he allowed the city attorney to misrepresent the nature of my new evidence. Mm-hmm. And he dismissed it based on that city attorney's misrepresentation.
Okay. Now, so Jay-Z, apparently he does have a son. The paternity test, I wonder if that came out, even though that's like a sidebar. Was the kid his?
Well, they never got to do the test as far as I know. The test never happened.
Oh. Well, see, when you have money, he is wealthy and he is connected, a lot of stuff get brushed away, put aside. Going back to what I'm saying, the state of New Jersey is very corrupt. So it's all about who you know and how much money you have. If you would have walked in there and you were a multimillionaire, they would have probably represented you, probably. So, but thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, it used to be that a lawyer would take it perhaps on a contingency fee basis in terms of if there's a settlement, a certain percentage of the settlement, and if it had to go to trial, a certain percentage of any recovery that followed on trial.
Right. Well, right. But this is him just, wanting justice on merit, and lawyers don't care. They want the check, they want the dollars, they want the money, they want the recognition. So listen, I hope you coming on you get some eyes on your case, and maybe an attorney that's out there, whether they're fresh out of law school or a seasoned attorney, may be interested in picking up your case or consulting with you. So I hope this helps. Anything you want to say in closing?
No, thanks for bringing me on. Thanks for the information, and I'll keep you updated on my progress.
Please do. Yes,
Yeah.
please keep us updated. Send me an email and let me know what happens after the 22nd, and you can come back on and give us update.
Also, I sent you my municipal transcripts of. I don't know if the judge has time, but if he ever, gets time, I would like if he could look at them and see how I did as a pro
We'll
se.
see. We'll see.
All right, I'll send it
Right.
to him and let him read it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. El Amir. Did I say it right?
Good luck.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate
May
it.
the muse be with you.
All right.
Have a good night. Very nice man. I hope everything works out with him. And I know you are very careful because you cannot give legal advice. But
I'll talk to you about it later.
Yeah. So
Okay.
let's get into the main topic here, right? Georgia Court of Appeals allows Trump appeal to have Willis removed from case to go ahead. Mama.
They did what his lawyers filed, what they call, or some states call, petition for writ of certiorari. In other words, for permission to argue the case in front of the state Supreme Court or the next level below appellate court. They agree to hear it. It's not a ruling.
It says just over a week after the Georgia Court of Appeals said it will look at the ruling that allowed Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis to remain on the Georgia election interference case. It is allowing the appeal filed by former President Donald Trump to have Willis and her office removed from the case to go ahead. Now, the Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee ruled that Willis would be allowed to stay on the case if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade stepped aside following accusations that the two had a romantic relationship. But now, so like you said, what happens? So what happens next after this?
Well, after reading his 24-page order, which was very, very well done, if you follow what he put in his order, the appellate courts can move from there. Yes, Judge McAfee. The appellate courts can move from there. It was very well crafted. They had much more effort into it than I'm used to seeing on this level.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. And some of his findings will probably be persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that an appellate court might go along with the defendants in this case and say, okay, boom, she's out.
So do you think when the Georgia Supreme Court hears Trump's appeal, do you think that they may remove her?
They might. There are ample grounds to remove her.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you're supposed to be objective, and she's already from Fani said objectivity is not this. Remember, right now, the record is replete with this is against her. This has nothing to do with justice. This is white people jumping on her as a black woman. This is Trump is besmirching her. This is all about Fani, and it's not supposed to be about Fani. It's supposed to be independent of that. It's supposed to be about that other lady, the one with the blindfold and the scales, Madam Justice.
Right. Well, she has another issue because now she has the GOP Senate. They are opening up a second congressional hearing
And
investigation.
she says she's not going to reply. Well, she is going to have to get somebody on an appellate level in the court system to excuse her from appearance. But the problem is I think she needs to appear, and she needs to take the Fifth Amendment and say, I decline to give testimony on the grounds it may tend to incriminate me, which will be kind of politically embarrassing if the district attorney for a large part of Atlanta winds up having to say, I take the Fifth to avoid incriminating myself.
It says Senator Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson are investigating whether Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis' office misused federal funds. The two Republican senators highlighted multiple reports accusing Willis' office of squandering funds, including from the Justice Department Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention and other initiatives on frivolous items such as swag and unrelated travel.
Squandering, let's be more explicit. Embezzling or misappropriating.
In the fiscal year 2020,
perhaps.
Right. The fiscal year of 2020, OJJDP awarded Fulton County nearly $500,000 to establish the Fulton County Center of Youth Empowerment and Gang Preventions.
Where did it go?
Exactly. The center has yet to open, and the building meant to house it is closed to the public.
Okay, how about the $7.5 million to catch up on delinquent prosecutions? Where'd that money go to?
Right. So they cited
and by the way, what she and Wade were up to looked like a good way of laundering some of that after it got ripped off. And then did anybody go back through her authorized payouts to Mr. Wade, $720,000, and the matter hasn't even been set to trial to see if those look legit? No. And it looked like they were splitting that little kickback from him to her. So
it says Johnson and Grassley's probe comes after the House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan subpoenaed Willis back in February over similar allegations of mishandling federal funds. The waste or misuse of taxpayer funds is unacceptable. So yeah, so when somebody's subpoenaing you, you're supposed to show up, right? You're supposed to answer the subpoena.
If there's a subpoena and the subpoena is not invalid on its face, yeah. But usually what they do to protect themselves is file a motion to quash, QUASH, the subpoena. I don't know if that's been done.
Well, aside from the gang prevention and the youth center, it says
and the reduction of crime or the expediting the handling of criminal activity to the tune of $7.5 million that's disappeared somewhere.
Well, it says here Grassley and Johnson also flagged how Fulton County DA office reportedly got $2 million from a sexual assault kit initiative, but spent about 49% of that on travel and other expenses between 2020 and 2023.
Maybe that was where she wound up with that huge tab in Napa Valley, California that was paid for cash.
And she paid for Belize on his 50th birthday. The two senators are demanding a list of grants the Fulton County DA's office garnered since fiscal year 2019. Willis ascended to the district attorney perch in 2021. They also want a list of expenditures and planned expenditures for each grant. Willis was given a deadline of May 29th to comply with that request.
May
What
29th
happens,
hasn't got here yet, but
but
let's see if
if
she
she don't?
does.
What
What?
happens? What happens if she don't?
Well, there are other things the legislative bodies can do.
Like,
They can cut the funds or demand that they be returned, or they can implement proceedings against her. She
the
can be
House,
sued personally and in her position as an elected official.
it says House Republicans also invited Nathan Wade to interview with the Judiciary Committee regarding Trump election case. Chairman Jim Jordan says Wade cannot go unquestioned. But he hasn't shown up to the interview. So I think with me is when Congress subpoenas you to show up to a congressional hearing, do you have the right to decline?
No, you don't. You run the risk of being locked up for contempt, because you see what's happening. Effectively, they're going through the courts to do this. So that's one of the remedies if you don't show. The deal is you comply with the subpoena. You just assert Fifth Amendment status, or you move to quash the subpoena. If the subpoena is legal, if it's something that can be done, well, you get problems with deuces take them. They ask folk to bring all kinds of stuff, and sometimes they just can't do it. Show up, where is the stuff? I can't bring that. I have no access to that, or it would be inappropriate.
So now she has until May 29th to submit the list, of how she allocated the grant money or what happened to the grant money. Will that list be made public?
Maybe.
I think
It's supposed to be public record since it involves public funds.
Okay.
See, you know what? The arrogance that you see here is astonishing. It's like after you potentially stole all this money, you don't jump in the middle of it unless part of the deal is we'll let you take the money, do what you want if you do us the favor by blocking this guy. That's beginning to be what it looks like, which starts drifting further and further to the side of criminality. Fani could do some time.
Yeah. Oh, prison time. If they find that she misappropriated those federal funds.
Income tax evasion, filing knowingly false returns, also that thing with giving her a break on the levy from a tax lien on her home, apparently based on misstatements, which become a knowing misstatement to a federal agency or agent, which is a felony in the amounts of concern here. So she's looking at
So I think I think she needs to make, I don't know. Okay, let me ask you this. Will this play a factor in the Georgia State Supreme Court appeals that the appeals hearing, Donald Trump appeal hearing to remove her? Will this congressional hearing
is not going to have anything to do with it, but
they know
some of
that
the other stuff might. It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Okay.
But here's the other thing. See, what's ultimately at stake here is the same thing happened to this other gentleman we just interviewed. The case was transferred to another district attorney's office, and that district attorney just said, we dismiss it against the plaintiff, and the defendant, the female officer. They just dismissed the charge against the person. That could happen there. you get another district attorney involved and they can just issue the statement, hey, after looking at this is just totally bogus. We're dismissing these charges. And we're not going to go any further.
Okay. I want to bring
We
something
are
else.
null prosecute, which means we're not going to prosecute these any further.
I'm not going to ask you what do you think the ruling is going to be, because that will be you giving legal advice, right?
That's not legal advice. I can give that. I don't know. It depends. I have to look at the Georgia Supreme Court. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I don't do stuff off of the top of my head.
And you're not going to sit up here and give us your own personal opinion. You will, if I ask you.
I mean, I might give you my personal opinion, but I need to do a little bit more before I have a personal opinion.
Right. No. I will. So if I asked you if you were a judge on the Georgia,
what I have seen, I'd probably say remove her. And as I said, Judge McAfee's 24-page written opinion is very well done, and it certainly lays out a good case to remove her.
So I want to ask you this question.
And that also deals with some of the other conduct she's engaged in outside of court.
I want to ask you this question again, though, right? Just for clarity. Why didn't Judge McAfee remove Fani Willis and Nathan Wade?
Well, he gave him a choice, and he ruled where he is, and that can go up to the next level. They can take a look at it. The ruling he issued is not a bad one, but there's potentially more to it. In other words, stage at a time.
Okay, so.
In other words, you ever heard this thing, it's above his pay grade, kind of, sort of?
Okay, yes.
Move it up to the next level. There you go.
All right. Which is, but his ruling, he laid it out in his ruling, and certain things that he implemented in his ruling.
Well, his findings.
His findings allowed for Trump's lawyers, or
See, there has to be something for the appellate courts to go on. We've got a trial court's findings, and they can look at it. I said that a while back, what's going to happen.
Right. It was something else about this before I move on. And it's slipping my mind right now. Oh, well, both of them, I guess, hitting a campaign trail, Judge McAfee, Fani Willis, and everyone else. But listen, I guess, she has until May 29th for number one for the GOP committee hearing to submit the list of what she did with the money. And then also, the state of Georgia granted Donald Trump appeal to hear, I guess, their motion.
What they did is they just said, we'll hear it. That's what they did.
Well, they're going to rule.
They ruled that they'd hear it.
And then when they hear it, they're going to rule whether they're going to remove her or not.
No, they agree to hear it. See, when you start asking for an appeal, you have to petition the court to hear it. It's not an automatic appeal at this point. So in other words, we want permission to appeal.
Well, what happens after they hear it?
Well, it's up to them.
To remove her or not?
No, to do what they're going to do. That's one of the options, is to totally remove her. They may do something else.
Like what? Is there anything else?
They could bring in a special prosecutor from outside who's not corrupt and part of the, or at least looking like that. They might bring in a real special prosecutor.
Okay, so just because they remove her does not mean that they will dismiss the case.
No, they're not going to dismiss the case. It's pending. And it's indicted. Somebody's going to have to approached Judge McAfee and asked to null prosecute, which means nullo prosecute, which means the state says we're not going to go forward, and with the court's permission, we'd like the matter dismissed. Now, frankly, if it was in Tennessee, I'd say fine, but the defendants ought to pay the court costs so jeopardy would attach so nobody can come back later.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And people do get to be political animals. You might say, well, you know, this guy's likely to be president. We need to start playing this straight up and down instead of letting these folks slant it with the atmosphere being, oh, he's an evil Baba Yaga, the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
And all these other things are coming into the fore. People are not immune from outside influences, and it's beginning to look like, especially with Georgia's findings on failure to document or record 360,000 ballots. You know, it's like, what happened to them?
Okay. Well, that is.
And that's one of those tech things. If the rules say you have to record them and you don't, are they to be thrown out? Well, you can't undo the election. The guy's in office, but you know, all of that stuff that they're getting on him about find me some votes, which is supposed to be so wrong. Well, apparently there were some votes to be found, in spite of what the left end press wants to say about it.
Right.
That's why we have free press rules. If the press sits there and distorts the evidence with no counter or the facts, like they're doing right now, who's to say? But some of the things that are coming out should have been out 2021,
Right.
3 years ago.
All right. Well, that's it with the Fani news. Of course, we're going to keep talking about her, and we're actually going to bring back Mr. Brown, who is running for DA, to interview him. So we're going to set that up. But
he's not Brown. This is the guy running for sheriff.
Sorry.
He's going against Mr. Butt.
Yes, exactly. So
the Butt, the porn star.
Yeah, the porn star.
Literally, the porn star.
Yeah, go to the website.
Gay porn star.
Go to the website, therealdananetwork.com, and you can see the porn video that Sheriff LaButte was in. So I want to move on to little firing topics, a little bit of pop culture, a little bit of culture. DEI. It says here the University of Charlotte at Chapel Hill has fired all of its diversity, equity, and inclusion employees and diverted their $2.3 million annual budget to hire more police. It was some other stuff on the DEI news. Texas University leaders say hundreds of positions programs cut to comply with DEI ban. It's a DEI ban going across this nation on college campuses.
That comes from some colored folk at UC Berkeley back in the early 70s trying to chomp off all the good black folks so they could get in medical school and change the rules. We told them then that this was going to happen. So 52 years later, we get vindicated, and now the consequences are what they are. I'm not surprised. I've been saying for 50 years, this is wrong the way they did it. See, in other words, we had a way set up and affirmative action was being run so it was race neutral, but it did have a racial impact because the neutral standards applied very heavily because a lot of black folk and minorities were victimized by these things that applied to them very heavily, so they got advantage of it. These clowns at Berkeley didn't want any such objective analysis. They just said, we scored best for black folk, even though there's nothing to explain why we didn't score as well as the white folks. So we said, that's not going to work. oh, you guys are administering a political test. Yes, we're administering one. In other words, the standard is based on competitive assessment, a grade point average, aptitude test, and slash or other factors that indicate an ability to succeed. That's race neutral, but there are other factors that apply to black folk that are still open to consideration, but they didn't want that. So they said, we're some little boule types and we enjoyed our little frat and sorority things, and we didn't want to work too hard, and we didn't do anything except party and enjoy our situation and circumstances. So we think we're the best black people in here. So no, it doesn't work that way.
Well, speaking of DEI, it was some months ago. It had to be sometime last year, right? Former Facebook and Nike diversity manager, she gets 5 years in prison for $5 million fraud.
That's what you have. All these weak Negroes, they take advantage of the situation. They aren't putting it on the line to deal with woo, wowie, whoopee. The people, they're saying this is an opportunity myself so I can dip. Now, has she gone to trial or has she been sentenced?
Well, I think I did a show on this. So she's a former diversity manager at Facebook and Nike. She was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in prison for stealing a total of $5 million from those companies. Barbara Furlow Smiles, who
Screw Facebook. That's bad anyway. I mean, the appeals, that's what it, but Facebook's so effed up.
Well, she's 38 years old. She used the money to fund a luxury lifestyle in California, Georgia, and Oregon. Is it Oregon or Oregon?
Either way. Oregon.
So it says Barbara Furlow Smiles, who pleaded guilty to wire fraud in the case in December.
She pled guilty. Oh, the hell with it. She copped out. She admitted her guilt. Then
more than
quit stealing with your narcissistic ass coming up here ripping off the people's funds. Think of all the people you hurt when you diverted the money from their use and utilities to your own little personal gain. That's not cool.
Right. So it says that utilizing a scheme involving fraudulent vendors, fake invoices, and cash kickbacks.
You know what? Why do these sisters, when they get in these positions, steal so damn much and get so damn narcissistic? What's the matter with them? Fani, Letitia, what's the deal?
Oh, Tiffany Hayward out in Chicago.
Tiffany,
Mayor, yeah.
And what's the one that got sentenced to jail? And she's squawking about it. That got on. And then Mosley. She got on Breakfast Club. She didn't testify. But what she did was she essentially confessed to the criminality because she said, I didn't do anything. All I did was took my money out of my particular account where she had to pay a penalty for withdrawal. And specifically, that's exactly what she was being charged with for that particular type of mortgage. And who guaranteed it through a federal program. You can't borrow money even from yourself. You have to have it cash on hand. And she borrowed it. Technically, you even have people getting difficulty where they have overdraft protection and they write a check and the bank has to temporarily lend them the money to cover the check. Right. See, that'll even get you in trouble with some of these special mortgage plans.
What did you say? Why black women stealing?
Yeah, what's wrong with this? Oh, Atlanta Housewives. Yeah. I guess that's the role model.
Is it because when you grow up, and that's not just black women, white women do it too, all women. I wouldn't
say, well, I mean, not all women, but some.
But how about, do you think it's because if you grow up poor?
No, I think of what it is
identity driven.
I think they're presuming a differential treatment process, deference to their status as women. And they're entitled to, when I see it, I can deal with it. That's part of that. She took my money, now I'm in need. She's a gold digger. Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah, see, that's part of that gold digging thing. And I'm not saying it's just black women, but, and I'm not saying it's all women. It's just a certain few where,
Yeah.
just like you would, even though I had some female pimps I represented, when somebody's talking about pimping, usually you would associate it with somebody who's a male rather than somebody who's a female. But, you know.
One last thing, a little bit of pop culture here. One last thing. One of your favorite people, Cardi B, she says, she tells Rolling Stone, because she's on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, she has an album coming out, that she will not be voting in this year's upcoming presidential election. I don't F with both of y'all.
Damn her. She's not, what is her problem? I mean, come on now. You want to mislead your black fan club into staying at home and not voting. Well, okay. Since the fans that she has are likely to be on a blue persuasion, stay at home. I want Donald Trump to turn that crooked racist bastard that's in the Oval Office the hell out of his position. So that's good.
She has millions and millions and millions of followers, and she's saying she's not voting. That's not good, because you do have the Gen Zs and the millennials who do not know how to think for themselves. They're going to, her listeners are going to listen.
Good. Then if they get stuck on stupid, I want them to stay stuck on stupid. Keep your ass home so we don't have to worry about overcoming what votes you might negatively cast because you don't have sense enough to do it for yourself. By the way,
what? You said, by the way.
Why?
Why what?
Are these people who are her fans? So when you get people with that, are we getting those who might be persuaded by something like take your booties to the poll? You know, that kind of stuff from the last election cycle. The other thing, too, is she's got lots of followers, but that doesn't mean you approve. There's some entities and people I follow that I absolutely detest. I just want to see what the latest poison is.
And Stevie Wonder is now a citizen of Ghana. Should we be happy for him? You know, I mean, he's
his business.
He's 74 years old. Yeah, that's his business. And if he wants to go back to Africa and become a citizen in the country of Ghana, that's his business. They welcoming him in open arms. They're going to try and take all the credit and said, oh, one of the most profound black artists, a Ghanaian. No, he's Black American, but
Ghanaian.
So he's a Ghanaian citizen. Would
Did
you
he
ever
renounce his American citizenship?
Well, I think he did. I think he became a new Ghanaian citizen. So I don't know if he has dual.
Yeah, but did he renounce it?
I doubt it. I don't think so. Probably not. But would you consider going to Africa?
I'm not gonna go move over there. They don't have appropriate air conditioning, bug control, you know. Might be a good place to go see the sights, but no, I'm where I feel like it. I mean, it's bad enough here. It's getting to be a jungle right here. We just hit the high point. Now we have more than one person being killed every day of the year in Memphis. And our idiot says the solution is midnight basketball. And this spent several tens of millions of dollars on, guess what, a gay promotion bureau. So why don't they have a Negro promotion bureau? People would get all upset about that. But if you get upset about it for one, you get upset about it for the other. So what's that doing? He says that'll do something if we treat the rainbow crowd better. That'll do something about stopping crime. I think that's full of shit, but I mean, I don't hold it against anybody else, but why do they get special privileges? Because of the way they like to do mutual masturbation. That's
And
what I call it,
so you're
because if it's not leading to sexual reproductivity, it's masturbation. It's just mutual.
So you're not going to Africa?
I mean, I've set up several safaris, all of which fell through. I'd like to hunt. I mean,
you would never consider having a summer home or winter home in Africa?
no.
No, okay.
I like certain things. No, I mean, I like to go to the islands. I like the Mediterranean. I like to travel. I like the Pacific Islands.
Okay. Let me get to
I mean, it's nothing wrong with visiting,
right.
But
thank you. Carbon says per character punching the air with fist and pump written on his knuckles. Peer character. Okay.
Who's that?
I have no idea. Much love. Big hugs to you both. Thank you, Sweet Pea 1776. Much love to you. This is a couple of comments. Judge, you mentioned Marcus Garvey, W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. What was Noble Drew Ali's impact on the issues about Negroes at that time?
Noble Drew
Ali.
In what respect?
I guess he was a black scholar during the times of WB and Marcus.
I don't know him.
Don't know. Okay.
But then again, I offer this. There are a lot of people out there that did not write books. Some maybe did, but there are a lot of people that have impacts on things. And we can't forget those people who are behind the scenes or out of the limelight who also
Noble Drew is a founder of Moorish Science Temple of America.
What is that?
Well,
I don't know that.
I guess he was claiming to be a prophet by his followers. He founded the Canaanite Temple in 1913 while living in Newark, New Jersey. Oh, I didn't know he was living in Newark then. He's from North Carolina. He died at age 43 in Chicago. Okay. So he was an American religious leader. Okay.
We have a lot of those.
Yeah. And what was this one here? I find that no one caught a visual activity problem of a school-age child. I'm 61, and when acuity. Oh, I thought you misspelled it. That's me. Acuity problem of a school-age child. I'm 61, and when I was 10 to 13 years old, the school would check your vision and hearing yearly on alternating years.
Yeah, that's California too, but a lot of states, they don't. Tennessee isn't one of them where they do. Mm-hmm. And we ran a survey, and it came back that there was this, well, we attended this as a matter of a sentencing consideration when you had criminal defendants who were entitled to some relief from service of the entirety of their sentences. So we were apprised, and we spent some collegiate study time on this. You have to take 16 college unit hours a year to keep your credentials up.
It says, can Judge talk to us about Walter Francis White? Who is that? We're not talking about it right now, but are you familiar with that person?
No.
Okay. I'm just going through some comments. Nuwambian cult leader. Okay, I guess that's who that guy Noble Drew was. Part of. Oh wait, what it says? It's part of the Free and Accepted Masons. Who you talking about with the free? Not that Drew guy, but whatever.
There might be, but the bottom line is just because you're a Mason doesn't mean that you might not have some ideas that have nothing to do with masonry.
Oh, I put a
And let
poll.
me just say this.
Mm-hmm.
It's masonry is not what people think.
Oh, they think it's Illuminati.
I know it's not. Look at the symbols, it's compass and the square. It started off about 5,000 some years ago, and what it was doing is taking somebody who might be an illiterate peasant, and you're moving him from being able to make bricks, to lay bricks, to cut stone, to designing monumental architecture and understanding the math and the angles and the measurements that went along with it, and being able to build a temple or a pyramid is very deep. So you had great power when you had great knowledge. And that meant that there was character, obligation, duty, responsibility that was to be learned, as well as the skill of becoming an architectural engineer.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so that has nothing to do with witchcraft. They had masons who were Chinese, Indian, from the Middle East, from Egypt, you name it, even down in the Sudan and Ethiopia. And it wound up spreading to Europe. It didn't originate in Europe, but it got to Europe through Rome, Greece, all of these things. Like, how do you build the temple? That's what masonry is about. Ain't got nothing to do with Illuminati. It's just people kept their mouths shut so these valuable skills wouldn't go free to somebody who didn't have the character that was supposed to go along with it. Knowledge is power. Great knowledge is great power. Remember, they're dealing with these things that start off with animism, with pagan religions that deal with being swept into Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all sorts of things. So you had great power when you could build the temples.
So the survey that I put up, who is responsible for kids' education, parents or school system? 89% says parents, 10% says school system, 416 voted. Thank you guys.
Parents.
Yeah, it is.
The obligation of the parents, before they even invented schools, to train the children. All higher order mammals train their offspring one way or the other. So we do that.
Well, before they invented schools, children were working, and then they passed the child labor laws, and then it's like, okay,
well, yeah, you had to learn how to do the labor you were involved in, whether it was farming, milking cows, slopping hogs, feeding chickens, or cutting wood, or doing whatever you did, working the clay for the pottery, or becoming a warrior.
Somebody wants to. We're not going to answer this question tonight. Save that for Monday. Tell us who the Illuminati is. Then why do you care?
It's not the Masons.
It's not the Masons. Go do your research and read up on it.
Stop listening to the bullshit. You get caught up in that. That's just something to scapegoat some things that are probably your fault because you aren't paying attention and you got an excuse. The Masons are not Illuminati. They're just people who know how to do monumental architecture if they choose, and in the meanwhile get good character. By the way, Solomon was a grand master. You know, most of your biblical characters that you idolize and you quote when you quote scripture, they were Masons. So the pharaohs were Masons, the potentates were Masons, the sultans were Masons, the Chinese warlords, King, Sun Tzu, they were all Masons. So, you know, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's something that spreads wisdom. Now, I suppose if you were a wise person and you choose to be evil, I guess you could act like an Illuminati, but basically Masonry is something to promote wisdom, discernment, experience, application, hard work, and those things that humans have universally held out to be meritorious. It goes back, like I said, more than 5,000 years. It's nothing new.
So listen, I want to say thank you to everyone, first of all, who is watching on X space. I appreciate you guys for reposting this space on X. I see you. I'm looking at it now. Was this Trevor Coker? Yeah. And Stacks a Trillion. And then also I want to say thank you to everybody that donated tonight. Thank you to everybody in the chat, everybody who's watching. I want to say thank you to the guests. What was L? I don't want to say his name wrong. L Lemaire. The guest that came on earlier today. Oh my God.
Elamil?
No, I'm actually going to.
How do you spell it?
Oh, El Amir. I said it right. E-L first name and last name A-E-M-E-R. El Amir. Yeah. I want to say thank you to him for coming on and sharing his story. And I always tell people, listen, if you have a story, you want to kind of get it out there, in the algorithm, in the public, send me an email and I'll get back to you and let you know if it's a yay or a nay. And listen, thank you guys for tuning in tonight, and be on the lookout for premieres and videos. Subscribe to this channel, hit the bell button. I forgot to put the barbecue sauce, and I don't even have an outro, so I'm a little bit of loopy today. Sorry.
Look in the background.
Yes, Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce.
It's reading backwards, by the way it comes across on screen.
Oh yeah. Listen, the commercials are all in the videos. The link to the website and the Amazon is in the description. So go to jjbbbq.com and order you some barbecue sauce. I don't see none of my moms tonight. I don't know what happened to Southern Belle. Maybe, listen, it's not mandatory, but maybe she was busy. I realized how much I miss her. But no outro. Yeah, I didn't have time to do all that, honey. I went to the gym. I'm trying to get into the rhythm of things, and I took a nap before I went to the gym, so I didn't really prepare the outro. But go to jjbbbq.com. We will see you guys Monday night. But make sure you subscribe to this YouTube and hit the bell button so you get notifications of all premieres and uploads. Say good night.
Yeah, don't go off. Stay on after you cut.
Okay. All right, guys. Bye. Say good night, Judge.
Good night.